Let's talk about Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio had a really embarrassing loss in his home state, his so-called home state of Florida, on March 15th. And he suspended his presidential campaign immediately after, saying, I'm out of this Republican primary race. And he said late last week that he's actually going to leave government altogether. He's not going to run for re-election in the Senate. He's not interested in being anyone's vice president. He's not running for governor of Florida. And obviously, although he's interested in being people's president, that's not going to work out for him either. He said, quote, I'm not going to be vice president. I'm not running for governor of Florida. I'm going to finish out my term in the Senate over the next 10 months, and then I'll be a private citizen in January. I hear, Lewis, I am going to be a very well-paid lobbyist in January, although we don't know that for a fact.
Maybe not. Maybe he's fed up. But if you want to be president, and he did want to be president,
presumably,
I don't know why you would just stop. Maybe he's one of those guys who will make some real money in that lobbying world for a while and then have another run in later.
It's tough to be in elected office, leave to be a lobbyist, and then come back and jump right into a presidential race. That is not an easy thing. You sort of want some direct path where, okay, he's a senator, and then maybe he is governor or something else. And a lot of Republican insiders who basically agreed that this was a disastrous run for Marco Rubio, particularly with the embarrassing loss in Florida, most of them still feel that he has a future in politics if he wants one. It's just not clear that he actually does want one here. He wasn't even ready to announce a presidential endorsement. He said, hopefully it's not Trump, but I'm not getting involved in that. I hope we can prevent a Trump nomination. It's amazing how much more reasonable people in how the more reasonable people in the Republican Party slowly get eliminated. There were lots of nuts in there at the beginning, right? Santorum, Mike Huckabee, Bobby Jindal, Carly Fiorina. But Rand Paul and to a great degree Chris Christie were of the more reasonable candidates. They were out very, very early. Now Marco Rubio is out. Kasich is reasonable, kind of, but a lot of recent articles have exposed that Kasich's really good at seeming reasonable, but he's done some disastrous stuff in Ohio, no doubt about that. It just seems like, for whatever reason, and maybe it's a response to President Obama in office for 8 years or seven plus years now, and the resentment that has brought on in many Republicans, the more reasonable Republican candidates basically never stood a chance.
Resentment that exists because of irresponsible media personalities. It's incredible how that works, but that's another story. Yeah, maybe that is it. Maybe only people like Trump can survive in this political climate on that side.
And you have to also remember that Marco Rubio had a huge problem, as our friend Greg Stevens recently emailed and reminded me. Is sometimes when we say Rubio did seem very reasonable in a lot of ways, why didn't he get more traction? He does see a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, and that really does not play well with many in the Republican establishment, particularly those who want a wall that Mexico will supposedly pay for between here and Mexico to stop all Muslim immigration. If Donald Trump's harebrained, half-baked ideas resonate with you, you're probably not going to see eye to eye with the sort of more sober and rational ideas presented by somebody like Marco Rubio or Chris Christie, or in many cases, Rand Paul. Just not, it's two puzzle pieces. They're not only from different puzzles, it's basically like a chess piece and a puzzle piece. They're not going together, Lewis.
It almost doesn't even matter what Rubio says. Think about what we've seen at Trump rallies and from Trump supporters. Just having the last name Rubio and the first name Marco is probably enough to disqualify you in their eyes.
Yes, certainly for many of them it is. And as we know, sort of the same dynamic applying to Ted Cruz, although to a lesser extent, which is also crazy because we've talked about Rafael Cruz, Ted Cruz's father, that also seemingly not dissuading some Republican voters. But I would guess that Trump voters presented with video of Rafael Cruz in his thick Spanish accent talking about Ted Cruz being anointed by God probably wouldn't play well with them either, I would guess.
I doubt it, but they do seem to like the Jesus stuff coming from Ted Cruz, generally speaking.
We have a Reddit discussion forum. If you go to davidpakman.com/Reddit, that's REDDIT, you can talk with us about these or any other stories, suggest stories for the show, troll us or other people, it's no holds barred on there, Lewis. DavidPakman.com/Reddit. Back after this.